the birthplace of the Bohemian Revolution. From Cowork 591 Studios, this is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network with co-host Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. I'm Jim Gillespie, and this is a Jesup News for July 3rd, 2023. On today's podcast, we talk to new Jesup football coach Jacob McMartin. We talk about winners and losers. Dale talks about Independence Day. He also updates us on this week's Farmer's Day. I talk about planting trees in my childhood days. We do the 10th segment of Mandito's book on how to be successful, and we look at events inside the Steve Brown Arts Center. We give you the top stories in Jesup. We discuss service and art, and we talk about a few people from Jesup. So, the Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has a vision for artists, young and old alike, to have the opportunity to better themselves while helping to build the skills of those around them. It will be offering community programming before expanding into neighboring communities. Programming will include a community speaker series that will showcase existing creatives who reside within the local community, as well as a pop-up series that will spotlight and partner with local businesses to provide opportunities for community engagement. The long-range vision is to house a rural artist residency program for professional and emerging artists in all areas of the arts and the humanities. Mr. Rueber,
Sir.
Let's start with you today. You've got some things on Independence Day.
Yeah, I looked into a few things, some from memory, and some you have to actually look up because I wasn't there or anything. But Independence Day is coming. We celebrate on July the 4th, and these were a couple of things I wrote down here that I find interesting. And the thing I remember from high school, one of the things is my American history teacher was a man named Paul Frank, and he would quote, and he would say, "All men are created equal, except Negroes, women, and Indians." And those were the people back at this time who were discriminated against and did not have equal rights. But the words in the Declaration of Independence, I think, are something that we should strive to live up to, but we haven't done it already. And it was interesting that I found here that Jefferson had written in the Declaration of Independence a long paragraph about condemning King George III about getting slavery involved in the new world in the United States. It would turn out to be the United States. And during the course of editing by the members of Congress, of course, a lot of Southern people there, that whole paragraph was deleted from the Declaration of Independence. And it was interesting to me that Jefferson was a well-known slaveholder, and yet he had written that he saw the problem with slavery in America. And if you read further on, when they were doing the Constitution, even several years later, slavery was also the big issue. And finally what they did is they just pushed it down the road and said, well, we'll look at this in 35 years or something like that is what they ended up doing. And so that, of course, led to the Civil War. And it was the boogeyman under the bed kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And to get the country, a lot of people had to swallow a lot of their beliefs and just say, okay, to get the country, we'll go along with this, and then we'll worry about it later. And that's what they did. So Congress approved independence from Great Britain, and actually that was on July 2nd of 1776. There was a resolution by Richard Henry Lee, whose descendant would be General Lee in the Civil War that tried to break the country apart. But his ancestor, Richard Henry Lee, actually proposed to the Congress, and it was voted on, to become a separate country from Great Britain. And then they appointed a committee, and this committee had been working before this on writing the Declaration of Independence, where they say we need to tell people why we're doing this. And so their job, the 5 people on that committee, their job was to write this document explaining to the world why they were doing this. And though there were 5 on the committee, Jefferson, of course, was the principal author and wrote almost all of it. And then, of course, it went through the editing process as they had to go through it line by line with the Congress to get it approved. And so Congress debated and revised this declaration, as I told you, and removed some things, and some things Jefferson objected to very vigorously, but it was believed that it all was passed. On July the 4th, they passed it, which then became the birthday of our country. But, Jefferson and Franklin and others said they signed it that day. Most people think the actual signing was on August the 2nd of 1776. And it always got me, like it was handwritten on that big, you see it on the big parchment, and how they made copies of that were exactly, I don't know the process for making copies in those days, but they all look exactly the same, but yet, there must have been some kind of technology they used. I don't know how the printers did that.
I'm not sure how that was.
Okay. Two members who signed the Declaration of Independence became presidents, and that was Jefferson and
Jefferson and Adams?
John Adams.
Yep.
Okay. And interesting with them is both of them died then on July the 4th in 1826. And there was another president, James Monroe, who also died on July the 4th, and that was in 1831. So kind of interesting. And I find, Calvin Coolidge, another president, was born on the 4th of July. So you figure there have been 45 presidents, and 4 of them have a real deep connection with July the 4th, which is Independence Day. Kind of interesting. So they talked about celebrating, and now I'm trying to think of the man, but they talk about having fireworks and explosions and big celebrations and this sort of thing, which just kind of carries over to today. And they said the largest fireworks display is in New York City. And guess how much they blow up every year?
As
Weight-wise,
far as
weight-wise,
weight-wise, I'm guessing 2 tons of worth of dynamite.
22 tons
Oh,
of pyrotechnics. The last year they had on there was 2009, but at least 22 tons of pyrotechnics are exploded every year. And so the person that impressed me the most out of this was Benjamin Franklin, because when you talk about someone who had a major impact on our country but never was president or anything like that. And he's been called the first American because he was a member of the Second Continental Congress, and so he helped draft the Declaration of Independence and signed it. He was a member of the Constitutional Convention years later and helped draft that and signed that. He also signed the Treaty of Alliance with France, which saved our bacon during the war. If without France, we would not have won our independence. And then he also signed the Treaty of Paris, which ended the war and made the United States a country. So he's the only person, in fact, to sign all of those key documents. So a very interesting man. And I was going to end here with just some quotes about liberty and what this country needs to do to survive. And he says, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And we've not always done that with this country. We have gotten along with tyrants just to further our own ends, and it's caused us trouble later on. Every man is of common right and by the laws of God a free man and entitled to the free enjoyment of liberty. And that was every man. And we need to remember, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles is absolutely necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and keep a government free. So we kind of need to keep going back to the basics, like you see in lots of different things. Go back to the basics. Why are you here? Why are you doing that? To keep our country free.
Fundamentals.
Yeah, fundamental. The more the people are discontented with the oppression of taxes, the greater the need the prince has of money to distribute among his partisans and pay the troops that are to suppress all resistance and enable him to plunder the treasury. So, without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech. And I've always thought the tough thing about freedom of speech is that you got to let the other guy have it too. If you have true freedom of speech, you have to let the other person have their say also, even if you disagree with them, instead of trying to shut them up so their voice can't be heard. You have to let the people decide and hear all sides of an argument, and that's one thing I think our government is not very good at. He talks again about freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved and tyranny is erected on its ruins. Republics derive their strength and vigor from a popular examination into the action of the magistrates. In other words, we need to know what our government officials are doing. And I see again this past week, the governor was fined $175,000 for stalling this Freedom of Information Act again. And I don't know how many government officials over the last 10 years have been fined significant amounts of money that come out of the state treasury because they have interfered with this idea of public use of the knowledge. What am I? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
To free public access to all the records our government is producing. So it says, "Sell not liberty to purchase power. I hope that all mankind will at length have reason and sense enough to settle their differences without cutting throats." And that's something our governing elders could learn also, because sometimes they're very vicious the way they go after each other.
They are.
Our new Constitution is now established and has an appearance that promises permanency. But in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Death and taxes. Ordaining of laws in favor of one part of the nation to the prejudice and oppression of another is certainly the most erroneous and mistaken policy. And equal dispensation of protection, rights, privileges, and advantages is what every part is entitled to and ought to enjoy. And I don't know if you read the decision in North Carolina to their Supreme Court, the legislature has, it's a Republican legislature, gerrymandered, made all these safe districts for Republicans, and in such a way that their own Supreme Court said, no, you can't be doing that. And so, and I guess there's a way for them around it so they can do it again if they want to, but at least for now, the Supreme Court has said, no, you can't be doing that.
A lot of states have been doing that.
Yeah, and when you get in power, and it gets me is that, the worm always turns, and when the other guys get in power, it's just going to go back the other way, and that's not, it's just not the way it should be.
No.
It should be fair. And in Iowa, we've always had a real good system establishing our districts, and I know there's been attempts to change that some, but so far we have a very good, solid, safe system that protects us against this partisan drawing of districts. And so I hope that continues, but I'm not too confident. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, have a happy 4th of July. Don't blow any of your fingers off. Remember, what we're celebrating. It's more than just hot dogs and beer, I think. It's just the idea that a group of people from all over the world can come to this one spot and form a country, and everybody has the freedom that everybody should have, whether they are black or brown or a female or anything, that all men are created equal, and this is the kind of place where you can come and live that life. So I hope someday that's what we actually have. Thank you, sir.
Well done. Well done. It is amazing, that a lot of people talk about the Constitution and how the Constitution must be followed word for word, but if you go back and look at the changes that have taken place in the Constitution where, black men were counted as eight black men were counted as 8/10 of a person, and the like. So the Constitution hasn't changed much in your and my lifetime.
Yeah. No. But it's changed a lot from back then. The only people who could vote were, free white men that owned property.
Right.
That were the only people that could vote. And so, and the public did not vote for president, right? It was the members who were elected to Congress would vote for president. And so we've come a long way to give the people the power, and hopefully we use it wisely.
Yes. Very good. Thank you, Dale.
Yep.
This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. We're here tonight with new Jesup teacher and Jesup head football coach, Jacob McMartin. Welcome, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well,
Nice hat.
Yeah, thank you. I got to replenish my Jesup gear. I've been away for a few years. I
Yeah.
got 3 shirts and 1 hat right now.
I was trying to think. I had you in class. What year did you graduate, Jacob, from Jesup?
2013.
10
years this year.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, time goes fast.
It does.
Mr.
It
Rueber.
really does. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about your ties in Jesup. Who's your family and everything?
Yeah, so I spent most of my childhood in Ottumwa. That's where my mom's from, but came up here around high school age. My dad is a Jesup graduate. My grandpa, Niall, is a Jesup graduate. And I don't know if his father graduated from Jesup, but lived in Jesup for a long time. So I have a lot of family ties in this area. The community means a lot to me, honestly. I couldn't imagine bringing my kids up in another community, and they're going to get to be the 5th generation of my family to live in this community.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's pretty exciting. Like this is what I've always wanted. I didn't know if the opportunity would ever be here. So
Yeah. Where are you living right now?
we live in 9th Street in town here, over the road between Dairy Cone and Quickstar.
Okay. So, which is good. Short drive to school.
Yes, it is.
And to the dairy home.
And
Yeah, tell my kids that. Yeah, it's a very short trip to get ice cream.
Yep. Oh, that's so cool. So, what month were you hired, Jacob?
I think it was March, actually. The job was posted in November. It was kind of a long process, but it was posted pretty early for the football side of it. And then the other part is obviously as an educator, you
Right.
need to get into the building and teach
Yeah.
because you don't make money coaching high school sports.
Yeah.
So the opportunity for that risk opened up in late February, or probably mid-February.
Okay.
So I jumped on that as the field that interests me. So.
So you had the football job for sure?
No,
Oh,
not
okay.
when I interviewed for the at-risk.
Okay.
It actually kind of went, interviewed for at-risk, was offered that, and the football interview was like a week after that.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
those things kind of went at a similar time, but
Okay,
it
so
wasn't
they
a
posted it in
package
November,
deal.
But
It was-
they didn't interview until the next spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So for me, it was like a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It was a long process, a long few months. So
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, the we were talking a lot before we went on the air, so we may repeat a lot of questions here. For Mr. Knutson, Mr. Knutson was
Yes.
here before you came in, and he said, I have to ask you about input versus output
Yep.
and the like. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah,
first.
so input equals output is a motto that our incoming senior football players came up with. It was worded a little differently. We shortened it to kind of make it flow better. But just the idea that you have to invest in things that you want to see returns in, right? Like your career, your family, your marriage, your college education. If you don't invest anything into it, you can't expect to get the results you want. And those young men talked a lot about, like, we want to be the first to really invest in Jayhawk football and see some returns. We don't feel like anyone, we've had some solid groups, good kids come through, but you're talking long-term, year after year, that investment hasn't ever been there in that program. They talked about they wanted to be a group that started to invest in that and put something into it so they could get something out of it that they wanted to see, that end result.
No, that's great.
So, yeah, it was really cool to hear him talk about it. And,
Who's all in your senior class, Jacob?
well,
A few names. I
yeah,
mean.
so like Kyle Bucknell is one of them. Dawson Bell, Skylar Blad, Jacob Althouse. Trying to think. Could have about 15, 16 of them.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the hope, and that's what you want in a it takes a lot of people to be successful on a football field, and having a good group of seniors is a big part of that.
Do you have any big kids or?
Yeah,
You
we
don't have
will
to
be
name
bigger.
names, but,
We will be
big.
bigger this year than my last year at Dyke New Hartford, and we're in the semifinals.
Okay.
We'll be bigger by probably 20 pounds average. On the
Wow.
line. So we have some big young men.
Yeah. Because
and
many
some
years
hard work.
Wapsie Valley has backs that are bigger than our linemen, and
Yeah.
it's kind of discouraging. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to see you have some kids that are bigger. So
Yep.
So Jacob, you said it's always been attractive to possibly come back to Jesup. What excited you about coaching football at Jesup?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to invest in the community, that means a lot to me. And you knew me as a young man, and I wasn't perfect by any means, but there's a lot of people here that did a lot of good things for me, and held me to standards that I didn't want to be held to,
Right.
and had hard conversations with me.
Yeah.
And I look at the football program, and athletically, it hasn't been there, right? It hasn't been what it can be. And I wanted an opportunity to get into that and be around these kids and be a voice for those kids like people were for me. I think like you, Gillespie and Sullivan and Mr. Strabela and Mrs. Rigdon and Coach Baldwin when he came back my senior year, like all people that invested deeply in young people in the community. And I wanted to have that same opportunity because it meant something in my life. It really did. It helped me get to a place where had no intention of going. And that's where I am now.
What are you looking forward to most about football this first year, I guess, Jacob?
Yeah.
What excites you about this first year?
The unknown is part of it, but also just the growth that I know we're going to see out of these kids that are investing right now. And I think they're going to be shocked when they see it. And that growth and maturity in the game of football is a difficult game, and they're going to grow a lot. And you know this as somebody who's coached, when you get into it, you're coaching ball and hanging out with kids. And I don't know if there's anything better than that. And then seeing that light click in those kids and them grow throughout a season is what I'm looking forward to most.
What have you been doing to grow this summer, Jacob, so far?
Yeah, I think a big part for us is the weight room. And just preparing football is a physical game. It's a tough game. There's inherent risk in that game, and preparing these kids' bodies for that game, strengthening them, making sure they move well, they're healthy, they're ready to play football. So we have 3 days a week, 6 sessions a day, seeing about anywhere from 80 to upper 90s of kids in there, not just football kids, but seeing a lot of the football kids in there. And then we do installs where we're installing our new offense and defense. We've had 3 of those so far. And some skill sessions, too, are more lighthearted, just the smaller skills of football, too.
They've been talking about head safety a lot the last several years.
Yep.
And like the helmets you have, are they brand new and fitted to each kid, or do they carry over? How does that work anymore?
So most of them carry over. There's kind of a new wave where you can do the fitted to each kid that goes. It's kind of hard in high school with kids growing and changing so much, but you can go that route. Ours they get resent in every year to be evaluated, checked, make sure they still work properly and can function.
Oh,
they get
okay.
reconditioned is what they call it.
There's a company that does that.
Yep, the helmet
okay.
companies do that, and then the ones that get denied, you can't use anymore, and then you purchase based off of that. So there's like I want to say it's a 10-year period that's max, and at that point, then it won't be used anymore. But then also it can be taken out at any point in that if they feel like it's not functioning properly.
Well, it seems to me that the number of concussions has come down. Is that right? Or over the last 3 years?
I would say that.
Since
I don't know.
Concentrated on it, or
I don't know if the data, but I would say personally, I feel like it has. There's just been a greater focus on player safety, especially with young kids as they come up and through the high school ranks, and making sure that we set these kids up for life, because 99.9% of them aren't playing football again.
and a lot of it is technique, right? And
Yeah.
how to tackle properly and this sort of thing.
Yep, tackling properly. I think being vocal about when you're hurt and being okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think in past it was looked down on to say, "Yeah, my head hurts," or "This happened," or "I'm
we're supposed to
dizzy."
admit weakness. Yeah.
Yep. But being okay with having those moments, like, man, coach, like something's not right, and so we can identify that, and teaching technique to try and keep that head out of the play as much as possible. Impossible to do it all the time. It's part of the game.
So
But
is it the school's responsibility to have a medical person attached to your team, or is that someone that you have to do?
I think,
to add
I don't know
this?
what year it is, but I think it is law now that you have to have an athletic trainer.
Okay.
So we have an athletic trainer that's on the sideline that can evaluate kids, do pre and post concussion evaluations to see if they're.
Okay.
Do you know who the trainer is this year, Jacob, or not?
I know her first name, Manila. I
Yeah.
don't know her last name. We're actually meeting tomorrow to talk about the season. So, yep.
And you bring up your trainer. Let's talk about your staff. Who's all on your staff this year, Jacob?
Yeah, so pretty exciting. We'll have right now we have 9 people in the high school, including myself. So some familiar names, and some maybe not familiar ones for some of you. Myself, Jason Sullivan, is going to run the defense. I'll run the offense. Bring him back on board. He was my head coach and pretty influential for me as a young man. Kind of side note, I didn't have a lot of consistency in high school in my life, and he was a very consistent person for me. And so I have a lot of respect for him and care a lot about him. And then we'll have Aaron Schutte, Rodney Sliski, this is bad, Paul McCone, Drake Buscherfeld, Brock Flaharty, and then John Patterson. So some new names, some familiar names, different faces, and Jordan Hoffman actually is one more.
So Aaron Schutte, does he have like a long gray beard now or something? He's been
It's
a
gray.
long time.
Yeah, he's getting gray.
Yeah, he has to be getting up there. So
I remind him of that. I think he's like
Well, good.
50 some.
Okay. And were you an offensive player when you played? Or?
I played both ways. I would say that I was more of a defensive player. That was
Okay.
just kind of my style. But I've worked both sides of the ball since I've been coaching.
Okay,
So
and have you adopted a certain kind of offense? Or?
yeah, yep. So it'll be different than what they've done in the past. We will. Yeah, we won't get into too many details.
Well, no, that's fine.
But yeah, we'll have a system that I've kind of picked up some things and some things that we did when I was in school even, but also in the stops that I've had
Sure.
previously.
Uh-huh.
So what were the stops, Jacob, that you had?
Yeah, first teaching and coaching job was at Dyke New Hartford for 3 years. Awesome experience, great school, great people. And then this last year I was at Independence, junior, senior high school. So
Okay.
taught and coached there.
And of those 2 stops, who are some of the coaches that influenced you a lot?
Yeah, I would say Dyke New Hartford. There's a lot of them. A lot of people are there for a long time, and it was kind of cool to be around them. You know, they were there before I was born and around the time I was born, doing it together and get to see them kind of. I don't want to say on the back end of their career, but on the back end of their career, still doing that together at a high level. So Don Betts, the head coach there. I would argue no one runs a better program than him in the sense that he runs it like a business but treats people like people. And he does a very good job, and he's very detailed with that and cares deeply about the kids and that. Greg Moore just sacrificed a lot for that community and kids for a long time. I actually talked to him one time. I was like, I hope I can say the same at the end of my career that you get to say for what you've done for these kids. Then I would say Chad Bixby, Chad Meester over there, been around for a while. Mike Soppy, Jeff Jensen, and then Independence, kind of opposite. They're on the rise as a program in the last decade, and most of those coaches are like my age, or right around there. We had one coach over 40, and then it was like 35, 31, 29, 28, 25, and I got to be really close with those guys who have been some different places, and Austin Pink, awesome guy. Justin Putz is the head coach, done a great job in the 10 years that he's been there. Seth Ruprecht is a 23-year-old defensive coordinator for one of the best 3A programs in the state right now, and he does an awesome job. And so I got to learn from a lot of people along the way, just kind of rub elbows with people that knew what they were doing.
Go back to Bixby. I see Bixby's daughter had a hole-in-one.
Yes, she did. Yeah, Bixby. Me and Bixby were pretty close. He was our tech guy for the district,
Right.
and hung out in his office a little bit before and after school, and spent a lot of time talking with him, and got to teach and coach his kids, and awesome people, good people.
Yeah, that's good family.
Okay, I have a couple technical football questions. And I don't think this is Three Stooges, but in a movie. But if the quarterback goes back and he has the huddle around him, and then he sticks the ball under his jersey and makes his way out, is that a legal play?
That is illegal. Somebody has to. Well, they have. I guess it's not necessarily illegal, but as soon as that ball's picked up off the ground, the play's live.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they were able to be set, everyone be set for a second, be a legal formation, enough people in the line of scrimmage, enough people in the backfield, and then go back to it.
And just fake the handoff and stick it under his jersey, that's a legal play? You do that, or?
In the play, I don't know.
Well, you should put that in your playbook.
Yeah. I should look into it. No.
And then
Game one.
Second question is, I swear I went to high school football games 20 years before I saw anybody kick a field goal or a point after.
Yep.
And now almost everybody has a kid that can kick.
Yep.
And do you think it's soccer influence, or what's causing this to? Even the real small schools, a lot of them will have a kid that can kick a field goal for 20 yards or even 30 yards and get all the extra points.
Yeah, I would say soccer probably does have an influence on it, but also I would argue that just as like high school football has developed over the years, people have seen the importance of spending time on that and spending time on the special teams.
Okay.
And I think maybe in the past it was like, okay, this is high school football. We got to learn how to run our offense and defense, and we'll worry about the rest when it gets there. But soccer has to play a role in it. A lot of those kids I know at Dyke New Hartford were soccer kids that we had. We had a just kicker and punter at Indy. That's all he did. He was a soccer kid. So that definitely has to play a role.
Do you have someone in mind, or someone that's
we don't
looking
have
to do that,
we don't have a lot of boys soccer kids at Jesup. We have a handful.
Yeah.
I don't have someone. I know some kids that have kicked and punted in the past, but I don't know that we have a guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
that person that we're like, okay, that's our guy.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really important anymore.
It
The
is.
field goal and the point after.
It is, and just spending that time on it. That
Yeah.
20 minutes a day on special teams
Yeah.
and making sure we're game planned for it and scouted for it and make sure we know what we're doing.
Well,
I'm sorry. If you look at the scores, like Saturday in the paper or Sunday, I guess they're out. You see a lot of scores, like 68-12, and
Yep.
lots of them.
Yep.
And does that tell you that the alignment, the conferences, or however they have them set up, are not right, or there's a real disparity between some schools and other schools? Or
Yeah. I would say, I think there's a few reasons for it. Football participation has dropped off in the last 15 years a little bit. I think it's kind of leveling now. But also, I would say football is a very difficult sport to find people to coach for. That's why we're very fortunate to have 9 and to invest the amount of time it takes to be good at it, really, as a staff and as the kids. It takes a lot. And I think I don't think I really knew that until I went to some places that have done it at a high level for a long time, and I got to see that investment. It's hard for smaller communities. It's hard for smaller communities to find teachers. We're seeing that in Jesup and Independence area now. I know for a fact, and those school districts have struggled to get applicants to be teachers, and then those people are most of the time your coaches.
Yeah.
So if you don't have those people, we played a team at Dyke New Hartford 2 years ago that had 2 coaches for high school football. That's it.
Yeah.
9 through 12, and they had 45 kids. It's hard to coach
yeah.
all the different skill sets you need when you have 2 people.
When we were applying for jobs, they were like 200, 300.
Oh, yeah.
It was murder. So
It was.
Okay.
Jacob, you talked about, or we talked about before we went on air, you talked about you're going to be the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
And then who's going to be your defensive coordinator?
Jason Sullivan.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you just talked about special teams. Do you have a special teams person?
So actually how we're going to do this, we're going to, basically each coach is going to have a section of special teams. So like my responsibility is to prep our varsity PAT team, our field goal team, PAT team, to scout the other team's PAT defense, how they're going to line, if they're going to bring pressure, how we need to block it up, and make sure we're ready to go, and so on and so forth. Each coach will have that responsibility. And kind of give them ownership over that. We won't have a special teams coordinator where that's all they do, but each coach will have a responsibility to prepare for that and be ready for that.
So help me here. I like to look at systems of the game and inside of games. How many different special teams? Like for basketball, there's inbounds under the baskets. There's sideline inbounds. There's full court press attack, things like that. How many different special teams preps are there?
Yeah, so technically there'll be 6. There'll be PAT defense, like your field goal block, so on and so forth, kickoff, kick return, punt return. But then you add in like a onside kick team, a hands team. Then you add a little more with that. Or, if you want to punt from formation, or you want to have like a defense stay, punt return type of, you add a little more to that. But there's 6.
Okay.
Yep.
And are there quarterbacks that have been looking at playbooks most of the summer, or have you done that? Or
so we've had our installs. We ordered. This is a funny story. We ordered playbooks. I'm a hard copy guy. You can do a lot online, but I just like having it in your hands.
Sure.
And so we ordered. We had them printed by the AEA actually, because they'll do it pretty cheap. We just got those last week. So we had installs where we taught the offense, the base offense, taught the base defense. And then the kids now actually have the playbook and can connect those dots from that terminology and the rules of the offense and defense to make it fit to what we do.
Okay. And so about how many plays would your starting quarterback, you'd want him to be perfect on?
Ooh.
Where if you
All
told
of
him,
them. No.
I'm sure.
No.
I mean, do you keep it like, I know some guys have 50 and some have 20 and some have 5 basic plays they use, and so.
Yeah, I've went back and forth on this for a while, as I've always wanted to be a head coach, and kind of in the last 5 or so years, kind of been trying to prepare myself and build up. You know, if I got this opportunity,
Sure.
what would I run? What would I do? And I've gone from at times the 50 play to cut it down to 10 play to, and I think we're somewhere in the happy medium now.
Yeah,
okay.
But conceptually, a lot of our stuff is similar. Like, so the big thing for me is I want the line of scrimmage, the 5 guys up front, to not have to think a lot about it. You can do a lot of different things with the skill guys, but as long as those guys know, you know, we're going to have 4 base run concepts, and we're going to have 1 style of pass protection, and then a couple screens.
Yeah.
The rest of it, you can do a lot with back there and make it look different. But all they need to know is when they get that call, this is what we're running.
Yeah.
This is our pass protection, or this is the run concepts. And really 2 of our 4 run games are structurally the same besides like 2 pieces. So
Something that I've noticed, Jacob, and as a retired teacher, retired coach, I still have friends that teach and coach, and I talk a lot to a lot of track coaches and football coaches, basketball coaches, wrestling coaches, and I've talked to a lot of guys that are going to be playing quarterbacks that are wrestlers here. I know. They're talking about playing a quarterback that is a wrestler at Independence this year, and I talked to Coach Foster at Wapsie. He's talking about playing a quarterback that's a wrestler.
get more information from him.
Yeah. And is that do you think that's a large change, or is that just an area right now?
To me, it just depends on what and who's the guy. You know,
Yeah.
I think there is a lot. Like at Independence last year, we had Mitch Johnson, who's a very good wrestler. He also was an all-state linebacker for 2 years and played quarterback. And had a cannon for an arm. And he was just the guy. We will have basketball are our only quarterbacks right now at Jesup, and talented kids and athletic kids. So I would say it depends what you want to do. And if that is the guy that can get the job done and be a guy that is cool under pressure and works hard, and his teammates can look at him and be like, yeah, I can follow him.
Yeah. Early on, back in the 70s, you would have the kids playing at recess, and elementary kids, and you could say, okay, in high school, that kid is going to be a pass catcher, and that kid's going to be a quarterback, because they were already assuming those roles. But then later on, like in the 90s and in the early 2000s, kids weren't playing football at recess.
Yeah.
You know, they just wasn't happening. Like they used to have pickup games and they would play, but it just wasn't happening. And I think there was a problem with football popularity or something, because it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And,
I grew up in Cresco, and Bob McNew came about my 7th grade year. And Bob was at Fairfield. He was at Crestwood a long time. He coached a little bit in college. McNew knew that numbers was important and had incredible numbers. But he every Saturday morning after a game he would meet at Bokeh Drug. Bokeh Drug was right next to the bakery, which was wonderful.
Oh, sure.
So they'd have coffee and rolls. They'd play the game film that Saturday morning. He'd answer questions for the community, and Coach McNew was incredible. Are you going? Not to give you more things to do. But are you going to have something like that? I know a lot of coaches do stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. This year, probably not. I don't know if I would be opposed to it. I know some schools that have done that in the past. Independence used to do it right after games. I'm not sure that's a great model. But I'm not opposed to that. Right now, I have Saturdays off for all of us, unless, like, as a coach, our staff is like, if you want to do your game prep Saturday, that's on you. But for kids and staff, just spend some time with your family.
Right.
On that day. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. I know they've done, Nate Clayberg does, what's he call it?
A podcast. He does a podcast.
Yeah, Jayhawks on the Move, too.
Yeah.
Yep. So things like that I'm not opposed to. having those conversations with people, and I think just some of that transparency can be good.
They used to have like Coach's Corner on the radio station Independence, where they
Yep.
would interview coaches from all around.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was a very interesting program, but I'm not sure if they do that anymore.
Yeah, they still do.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, because being over there,
Yeah.
our head coach would get calls on Saturdays to be on the show.
Yeah.
And,
Well, like Hoosiers, the basketball coach went into
The barbershop.
the barbershop after the game and had to
Yep.
take the
Yeah.
the brunt.
brunt of the
But I when you're talking about, what was it, Coach
Coach McNew.
McNew?
Yeah.
What a way to get some good PR and have conversations and get people on. I think there's a disconnect sometimes between like parents and the community on maybe what your intention is or what the plan was, or you've heard it if you've coached, like run the ball or
Yeah.
do this
They
or
have-
why
Those
don't you do
coaches were
this?
sitting
But
in
if
the
you can have
stands,
the
yeah.
conversation, and like, hey, this is what we're trying to do, or this was the plan, or this,
Yeah.
that's a good way to build some of that relationship up and bridge that gap.
As long as you have a plan. See, I said, I don't know what's going on. Well, that's no good. But if you have a plan, then I think that's great. So,
Yeah. Jacob, where'd you get your passion? Because you're obviously passionate about football. Where'd that passion come from?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think passion has to come from a little purpose in your life, right? To me, I feel like I have like a purpose in my career. Money doesn't motivate me. It never has. That bothers my wife a little bit at times. But I feel like I'm put here to do something for a reason, and to be in kids' lives and be a positive influence for them. And I feel like football is a tool for that. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. And I want to do it well, and there's no reason not to. And that's where my passion comes from. It took me a while to figure that out, but as a young man, you get into your own, right? And you figure out what you're here for. And I think my passion comes from my purpose.
Well, Jacob, is there anything we didn't ask that you'd like to share with the community?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything particular. To me, just football's special. It really is. Like, I talked to parents about this at a parent meeting. It takes 11 guys doing their job and 11 guys that look completely different and have different skill sets to do their job to be successful working together. I brought up Mitch Johnson, our quarterback at Independence last year. He sat down in the gym with me during class. He had an off period and came in and was talking. He's like, hey, what's your favorite sport? He's a baseball guy. He's like, baseball's my favorite sport, but I would tell every kid they need to be a part of high school football. Because it was special to me, just to be there together, working for a common goal with people that are completely different.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Jacob, thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. It's been very nice to meet you.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, what a great
Hope a lot of
night.
people come and see you guys play.
Yeah,
so.
I'm excited. We got August 25th at Wapsie Valley.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
can't
Be
come. I
there.
have to go to all the Hudson
Oh
games.
yeah,
One
we
more
have
year.
we have Hudson.
Yeah, well, good. I'll be
Week
at that
3.
game. I'll be at that game. So.
Yeah,
All
week
right.
3 at home.
All right, well, thank
Be
you.
merciful to that one tall, skinny tight end. I guess he's white out. I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Don't forget, this is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're coming to you from Cowork 591 Studios. I'm here with Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. I'm Jim Gillespie. And Dale, let's go to a favorite segment of mine anyhow. I don't know how many of our listeners like this, but I like this.
Okay.
Winners and losers of the week.
Okay.
I'll start here a little bit. For me, the winner this week is Buchanan County. In Buchanan County this week, there are 2 parades. The Farmers Day Parade and the Independence Day Parade tomorrow in Independence. There's the Buchanan County Fair. There is Farmers Day. There is the celebration of Independence Day. And so there's a lot going on. Jill talked a lot last week about stuff that is going on in Independence. I spoke to some listeners in Kansas, and they're just amazed about how much goes on in our area.
oh, sure. Yep.
For a small town like Jesup and a small town like Independence, we're very lucky.
Yep. No, I agree.
So the winner this week is Buchanan County. Who's your winner, Dale?
Well, I was going to say, we had a call this week from Quickstar, And so one of our members went down to Quick Store, and they gave us 60 pounds of Tootsie Rolls.
Oh, wow.
And so we said, okay, what we're going to do is 60 pounds of Tootsie Rolls, but it says it's parade candy, so I'm assuming it's the little bitty ones.
Yeah.
But you figure that's a lot of Tootsie Rolls, 60 pounds with those little bitty things. So
Yes, it is.
I thought, but I was going to go with a man named Michael Fettgatter. He works for the city, but he's also on the Farmers Day Board.
Yep.
And does a terrific job. And Alan Wright does all the work, gets all the entertainment, the band signed up, and this sort of thing. But we like to have some kind of special event also. Like we've had the firefighters from New York City come in and this sort of thing. And Kevin West, who was on our board, was very instrumental in doing that. But then Michael got after got into this NASA thing. And so he has gone far and above anything we thought was possible. And so we have these NASA ambassadors are going to talk to us about several different, I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but several different topics. And we have an astronaut, Cedar Falls bragged about their astronaut. He's from Cedar Falls.
Right.
Our astronaut is from Connecticut, and he's been in space much more than the Cedar Falls guy.
Yeah.
So you need to come and listen to this man. His name is Dan Burbank, and I've got his resume here. I was going to talk about that a little later, and schedule for their program. But yeah, we have a NASA astronaut that's been in space 160 some days, on 3 different occasions, and is a captain in the Coast Guard, retired now, and he's going to come and spend the day with us on Saturday, along with these NASA ambassadors. So you can learn an awful lot about NASA and outer space and different things that happen in outer space.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, I just like to shout out to Michael Fettgatter, because he just does a tremendous job getting all this arranged and everything put together. And that's not the only thing he does, but it's just fantastic to me how he reaches out and finds these opportunities. And so he's the one that found us our rocket too. See, so.
Mike does a super job for our community.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
That's
no,
a
I
good
think
choice.
we're very lucky to have him working for the city. I really
Yeah.
believe that. So
The my loser this week, and just before I left the house today for recording, they had found pieces of this. The company that owned the Titan submarine,
Yeah.
that was over the Titanic. That company unfortunately skipped a number of steps and had that implosion about almost 2.5 miles under the sea. I was listening to some submarine captains in our Navy and some experts, and they talked about how very few of our submarines ever even go that deep. That you are testing the boundaries by doing that.
yeah,
And so
I heard one of those guys say, if you put a window in the submarine, you weaken it structurally tremendously. And he says there are no windows in submarine, but they had a window in that one.
Yes,
and
they
said,
did.
He said after so many dives, it's going to fail, and that's what happened. So
yeah. So to me, unfortunately, that company is the big loser for this week.
yeah.
Dale?
No, it's interesting. James Cameron, who made the movie The Titanic, and he's
Right.
been down there several times, said the thing that sunk the Titanic was the same thing that sunk this submarine. It's just arrogance and not doing your research and thinking that you could defeat nature. Just doesn't work. So
Right.
okay. Well, I was going to go with Mr. Putin over in Russia. I think that this little insurrection they had, and it's a strange insurrection, but and it could have been much worse in lots of different ways. But I think it really shows up the weakness of Russia as far as the conventional army goes, and it'll be interesting in 6 months what's going on. If I was that guy, that man, and I cannot say his name to save my soul, it's got 12 letters in it.
Yeah.
But Putin was in the KGB and that sort of thing, and you can bet there's people out looking for that guy. So I would be living light if I was him and ready to move, because I don't know where he's at. I don't think anybody knows where he's at. But and they have all these conscripts and young people that they have put into the Russian army, and they say tens of thousands have been killed in this war in the Ukraine, and that's all on him. And I just can't believe that that country is not going to get rid of him one way or the other. Now that a weakness has been shown, so I think history may prove that this was a week where he was the biggest loser. So
It may that man, I do struggle, although I can recognize names. I've tried to say his name multiple times.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try on the air. It starts with a P.
yeah.
But he is supposedly in exile into Belarus, and he is handing over his military goods and his military. He has 50,000 men military. He's done a lot of dirty work for Putin.
Yeah.
He in Africa,
Well, yeah, he's stealing the gold and diamonds out of this one country for the dictator there. The dictator hired them to keep him in power, and they are just ransacking that place. So
Syria. He's been in Syria a lot. Unfortunately, and he ended up 120 miles from Moscow on that interstate between in Donetsk, I believe, was the city, but that's where the nuclear devices were.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
And
that.
they claim that he had control of them a while, and but I'm guessing one of the things. Putin is not a fair player. I'm guessing somehow he controlled that man's family.
Yeah, something happened.
stopped.
Yeah, something happened.
Because it just stopped right now.
Yeah.
So that's a good choice, Dale. This is Steve Brown, Art Center Podcast Network. I'm Jim Gillespie with Dale Rueber, and this week's library news. I was in the library earlier this week, and it's a busy place this summer. Very busy place.
They were doing an art project of some kind this morning when I was in there.
Okay.
Painting rocks or something.
Excuse me.
Very busy.
Don't forget the Little Todd Story Time is every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. for songs, stories, and more. The Spice Club for June, and for June was Tajin. I'm not sure what it is for July. Fontana Critters help us send the red-eyed tree frog and welcome our July critter from Fontana Park on Wednesday, July 5th. That is this week at 11 a.m. Don't forget the Jesup Public Library is closed for Independence Day tomorrow, and it's closed for Farmers Day, July 6th, and remains closed Friday the 7th, Saturday the 8th, and Sunday the 9th, and opens again on the 10th. Megaphone Blaster Party is Friday, July 7th at 1 p.m. on the southeast corner of Young and 5th Street, the park across from Joe's Pizza, playing Mountains of Foam. It's non-toxic, non-staining. Wear a swimsuit or clothes that can get wet, and bring along a towel and goggles if desired. Support the Jesup Public Library by buying Velvet Coffee and the Camel Water bottle. One of the new things they have to check out is a telescope, Dale.
I did not know that.
I think they're going to have a training for that
Okay.
before you can do that.
Okay.
But make sure that you look in on that. Don't forget the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. That's the Jesup Public Library, thanks to the Beckys and the others that work there. You do an incredible job.
Well, if that Mr. Vogt that writes the column about the stars in the paper every once a month about what he said, if he's going to be involved with that, because he's quite knowledgeable about that sort of thing. So,
Okay. With the foam, you mean, or with
no,
the
I'm
telescope?
talking about the telescope
Okay,
and
okay.
looking at the different constellations. And
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. Well, Fritz has great knowledge in that as well.
is that
Fritz
right?
Keys,
Okay,
yes.
I didn't know that. But
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I wonder who's going to be involved in that. In this week's obituaries from White Funeral Home, we have one. Carol A. Ratchford was called home Sunday, June 18th, 2023. She was preceded in death by her parents and sister Linda Ransinger, an infant daughter, and a son, Gregory Ratchford, a daughter, Catherine Vu, and a great-granddaughter, Ava Danielle Westfall. She is survived by her husband, Lloyd, of 62 years, daughters Deborah Shepard of Owine, Valerie Westfall of Fairbank, son Jeffrey Ratchford of Manassas, Virginia, and 11 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren. Carol was a devoted wife and totally dedicated to her children in all aspects of her life. So that is the lone obituary that we have for the week. I've got a unique story, and this is in my blog, My Life in the Amish Air Force, if you get a chance to look that up. It is about planting trees.
Okay. My life in the Amish Air
My
Force?
life in the Amish Air Force. The summer of my freshman year in high school, my mom worked in a rest home in Cresco. She talked about 2 of her clients, a husband and wife named Henry and Clara. She always told me to go into their room and talk to them. Henry always brought the conversation around to their son, Norman. He was so proud of Norman. Mm-hmm. Norman was a Big Ten wrestling champ at the University of Minnesota. And he made the sport almost as popular in Minnesota during his time as it was in Iowa. He talked about how Norman was working in countries around the world, such as in Mexico, Pakistan, and several African nations, helping the poor. I would always hear the same stories and try to escape, Dale, as I was in 7th and 8th grade. And you know, I didn't want to hear those things.
I understand exactly what you're saying. So.
Yep. One day, Henry said his son and wife, Margaret, were coming to Cresco for a couple weeks and needed help planting trees on one of the family farms. I promised I would help his son and wife plant those. Actually, I think it was my mom who made the promise that I would help.
Yeah.
Moms
are good at that.
Moms are good at those. So early one Monday morning, I found myself out in the field with Norman and Margaret planting trees. For 2 weeks, we planted thousands of mostly pine trees. Mm-hmm. They paid me around $5 an hour to help, which at that time was a lot of money.
Yeah.
The 3 of us worked like slaves, yet Norman and Margaret were incredibly interesting, telling me about all the places they had lived. When we were done, we shook hands, and I never saw them again. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not exactly true. I did see Norman on TV, hear him on the radio, and read about him for the rest of my life. You see, that Norman was Norman Borlaug, the Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Yeah.
You know, as a 7th and 8th grader, I had no idea that I got to spend 2 weeks with the Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Yeah, a great man.
It was remarkable.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting, the things that happen in your life?
Yeah.
All because you lived in Cresco. Who would have thought? Yeah.
No kid. No kid.
Yeah. No, I've seen there's a sign right outside of Cresco about home of Norman Borlaug.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a sign. Cresco is the home of 5 admirals in the Navy.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which, a landlocked state. Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, population, go in the Navy from Iowa. It seemed like there's proportionally.
Yes.
At one time, more people went in the Navy from Iowa than any other state. So.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, that again. A lot of my stuff is 50 years old.
Right,
okay?
right. Yeah.
It may not be true now. I'm sorry, but I still remember stuff from long ago. But at one time, that was the stat that I heard or read somewhere.
It was well, and I believe in the last couple of weeks, a new submarine, the USS Iowa, was just christened.
Yep.
So you're right. The Navy is a big deal in Iowa.
Yeah. If you go to these veterans things, and they sometimes have, they play the service songs and have people stand up if they were in that service. And the Navy always is very well represented. There's a lot of them that stand up. And so a lot of old sailors. Even in Jesup, they've got a lot of old sailors.
Yes,
so
yes, there are.
I think the American Legion is almost all old Navy guys. So Well, they're all one family. But
As far as an update, Dale, give us some updates on Farmers Day, if you would.
okay, well, I was just going to concentrate on the, I guess you call it the educational part of Farmers Day this year. Is a man named Dan Burbank is coming. And he's a captain retired in the Coast Guard. And a captain in the Coast Guard would be equivalent to a colonel in the Army or Marine Corps, I believe. It's just right below a general. And I just got a couple notes here. He retired in 2018. He went on 3 separate missions to the space station, and in 2000, 2006, and then 2011, 2012. And spent a total of 87 days in space in those 3 missions, and did a lot of work up there in the space station to keep it viable and keep it going. And so I'm sorry, that's the wrong number, but it would be 163, 83. Oh, okay, it'd be 187 days in space. 87 doesn't sound nearly impressive. I thought, no, that can't be right. And so he spent a lot of time in space, and he is flying into Cedar Rapids this coming weekend, and will be in Jesup all day Saturday. And at the Park Pavilion, after the parade, if you come down to the Park Pavilion, he's going to give a short program about 12:15 called My Journey to Becoming an Astronaut. And before that program, I should say, we're going to have a little program for the Grand Marshal of the parade, which is Alan Wright this year, honoring him for being a bus driver for the Jesup School for over 65 years. So, and we're going to have Alan driving a bus in the parade, and we hope to have it filled with people that have ridden his bus over the years. And sometimes you have, I think there are some 4 generations, but there are a lot of 3 generations. So we're hoping that that bus will fill up with people, and they even have matching T-shirts, I guess. So going all out. Okay. Then we also have these. After he does this, we're going to have a tent in front of Miller Vogel Insurance over here on 6th Street, and the NASA ambassadors and then astronaut Mr. Burbank are going to be there, and on Saturday, and there's a man named Dennis Johnson will give a program called Artemis, which is the Return to the Moon project that they have going now at NASA. And then at 3 o'clock, Mr. Burbank will talk about the aspects of human spaceflight, which I would assume would mean how it affects humans in outer space, would you? Okay. And then his second program is at 5 o'clock, how astronauts live and work in space. Mark Brown, who is another of the NASA ambassadors, is going to talk about comets, the vagabonds of the solar system. And another one, that's at 6, and at 7, a man named Dan Hoy is talking about our solar system, 4 billion miles of wow. So if you're interested in outer space, and these are people that know, and they would be there to give a short program and then answer questions and sign autographs, or if you have memorabilia or something. If you're interested in NASA at all, even just as curiosity or as a potential career or whatever, these people would be able to give you lots and lots of information. And we're very excited about having them come and be at Farmers Day this year. So I hope you will take advantage of this and come out and support these people, because especially like Mr. Burbank, been in space all that time, and he knows. And so if you want to talk to somebody that knows, he's the guy that can do it for you. So I hope you'll all turn out and take a chance to go listen to these people, because they are experts in their field.
Well, Dale, we as a community can't thank the Farmers Day Committee enough for the efforts you guys make to bring, or you people make to bring, incredible acts and incredible, knowledgeable people like this to our community. It is year after year. We have some of the best free entertainment in Iowa.
And it's because the bar is set pretty high in a lot of ways as far as getting the special features, and so but we try awful hard. And I know years ago we had the Vietnam Wall, and that was just a fantastic program. And we've had the 9/11 firefighters here a couple of times, and got a lot of tremendous response from that and other different things. And we hope that people will take advantage of meeting these NASA people and learning from them, because it's really a great honor, again, to have them.
Yes.
To have them here in Jesup. So
All right.
thank you for the chance of talking about that.
Yes,
So,
thank you. Thank you for all your efforts. The Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is working very hard to grow and do events like the Farmers Day Committee does year round. This week, a couple of those events this past week were Art in the Park. Mary Steuben set up that, and July 14th, again, Allie Borgerding is in the park with Art in the Park.
did you bring your frog that you made?
I did.
You should have brought that.
I brought
That
my
was
froggy
very cute.
voice.
Yeah.
Does that count? Or?
That was very cute, and the kids were having fun with that. So
Thank you. We are also having the Littleton Free Watermelon Day, July 29th, 2023. Don't forget, we have music by Belvins and Powers. They're also at Farmers Day.
Yep.
Chet Reagan Music with Manny McCleary and the Bad Habits Band. We have artists Bruce Gordon, Helen Hunter, and Barb Prawl. We have food vendors, the Jesup Lions Club, Boyd's Food Truck, and Totally Rolled Ice Cream. And the Independence FFA is providing free watermelon from 4 until 5 that day. The sponsors include Littleton Lounge, Reyes Concrete, Littleton Chatham Historical Society, Jacobson's Fabrication and Repair LLC. I was out there this past Monday, Dale, and Donnie has built quite a business out there with his wife and his in-laws. They have a lot going for them.
okay.
We're also sponsored by Dream Chaser Acres, Boyd's, Jesup Lions Club, the Independence High School FFA, Thomas James LLC, Totally Rolled Ice Cream, Even Events and Rentals, and Derek's Repair Shop LLC, and the Independence Bulletin Journal. Please, after we celebrate Farmers Day, put on your plans the Littleton Free Watermelon Day, Saturday, July 29th.
You have just enough time to recover from Farmers Day to go out there and do that. So.
They will. Very good.
I was worried about Dream Chasers. Every year I help with the parade up there, line up the parade, and their little car with Dream Chasers all over it would be parked right at the very front, usually on the south side of Prospect Street, right at where 6th Street crosses. And last year I went up there and they weren't there. And okay, this is not right. But they did end up coming, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes later, so they were farther back in line last year. But they are real. You can count on them being there every year. They have their very nice. I remember when Virgil was coaching over at Dunkerton, and what Tracy did she teach? Did she? I don't know. I knew Tracy
coached.
before she married Virgil.
Yep.
She was up at school, right? And so, but if you like dogs, I guess
They
you'd have to like dogs an awful lot, I would think. But
Tracy is a visionary. Tracy and Virgil are visionaries. Virgil would say Tracy's a visionary. They have a large number of their own dogs, well over 30 dogs.
Okay.
They run a Dream Chaser Acres, and they also run the River Roads Rescue Sanctuary. They cannot out of that sanctuary. They cannot adopt dogs out to people. They can adopt them out to other licensed rescues.
Dealers or rescue,
Yes,
okay.
rescues.
Yeah.
But because they are a sanctuary.
sure.
But they have each week they have between 50 and 100 dogs on their property. Excuse me, and they are amazing with animals.
Yeah. No, my kids boarded theirs out when they were here visiting us after a couple of days, and they were very happy. And this is many, many years ago now, so I'm sure. But they were quite happy with the care their dogs got out there. So
I am on that board, and because I'm on that board, I was able to help rescue a dog from Texas, my dog Sadie. And in Texas, there are 4 tick diseases.
yeah,
And Sadie Sadie was near death, and Tracy saved Sadie. I mean, an incredible effort, giving medication twice a day, and Sadie got down to 40 pounds. And Sadie's a big dog. She's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. If you look them up, they're lion hunters in
Oh, okay.
Rhodesia, and she's back up to 80 pounds now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we covered a lot. That's
yeah,
good.
but Tracy and Virgil are amazing with
Yeah.
animals. If you'd like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center or have an idea for an event, go to the SteveBrownArtsCenter.org and follow the link. If you have news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@SteveBrownArtsCenter.org or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message. We have listeners, Dale, from Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, of course,
Germany, you told me?
Germany.
Germany.
We have them in
Michigan,
Scotland,
I know.
Michigan.
Yeah.
We have them in Illinois. We have listeners that are involved in the media. I know Paul Yeager from Iowa Public Television listens to us. So
Yeah.
hi, Paul. He always texts me early on when it comes out early on Mondays that he listens to it on the way to work.
Okay.
So please.
You think he laughs a lot?
Oh, I'm
The
sure
professional announcer, and so.
I'm sure he does. But if you would share it with your friends, we have 66 Spotify listeners. All 66 don't listen each week. We're almost up to 2,000 different times that it's been listened to over the last year. I'd like to thank Dale and Blake as always. I'm Jim Gillespie, and thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your day. Remember, each day is about little victories.
Yes, sir.